You're lying, you knew all along. Her voice cracked as she steadied herself behind the battered table, holding up the brittle envelope. I didn't know a thing, you're grasping at ghosts, the gray-haired woman shot back, clutching her handbag tight, knuckles white. Then why did your name show up on the bank transfer sheet? Explain that. A flicker of fear flashed across the man's face. We did what was best for the family, put that down. No, you took what you wanted because it was easy, not anymore. You're making a scene, think about your son. His eyes darted to the crowd. She didn't lower her hand. Everyone here has a right to know, this wasn't yours to take. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Every face in the diner blinked, silent, waiting. Let's see you talk your way out now, she whispered. To understand how it came to this, let's go back 3 weeks earlier, when the rain started to fall and nothing was certain. She counted the $42.16 again, thumb trembling as the November rain battered cracked glass. Breath clouded the windshield. Rowan lay curled in the passenger seat, a tangle of skinny limbs under a faded Power Rangers blanket, his cowlick unruly and stubborn as always. Mama, what's for dinner? He whispered, not opening his eyes. Whatever comes out of the cooler when we plug it in, she tried to joke, glancing at the cooler wedged between 2 suitcases and a trash bag of shoes. Maybe peanut butter, maybe, surprise. Rowan huffed a tired sigh. I hope it's not the surprise kind. She almost smiled at that, her eyes stung. The smell of wet pavement slid in behind the broken heater. Every muscle stayed tight from the funeral 3 weeks back, her mother's voice weak and distant, then suddenly gone, buried under Appalachian clay just outside Casey Township, West Virginia. She couldn't stop seeing her stepfather's big hands boxing up photographs the day after, throwing away pictures, clothes, her son's drawings. Not your concern anymore, he'd said. Best let the living move on. But what stuck even harder was the voicemail Aunt Linda left last night. Restaurant's yours if you want it. Not much, hun. More mess than building, if you ask me. Beside Linda, Uncle George muttered, That's the dump, right? The one with the duct tape on the roof. She heard them again, louder in memory than through the phone, mocking, You'd be better off with the shed behind it. As if she hadn't just lost her mother. As if her son wasn't watching her grip the steering wheel too tight. The car rocked in a gust. Rowan opened his other eye. Are we gonna sleep there tonight? Looks like it, she said, feigning confidence. Unless you want to camp in the rain. He wrinkled his nose. No ghosts in there, right? She squeezed his shoulder, staring at the silhouetted bulk of the old place. The boarded-up restaurant, faded turquoise paint dulled to slate, the navy blue shutters half gone. If there are, we'll share the peanut butter with them. From her mother's worn notebook wedged into the glove box, a corner peeked out. She de-noticed it earlier, 3 pages glued together near the back, edges recently torn. A line of her mother's looping script had caught her eye, something she'd never seen or didn't remember. If she hadn't lost everything else, she might have just let it go. But tonight, with $42.16 and the world sharpening around her, it felt like the one thing she had left to unravel. If you've ever had a family secret handed to you with a sneer, then you already know why she couldn't walk away. The rain let up as she and Rowan climbed out. Boots squelched through black mud. The sky wasn't dark yet, but the sun had gone somewhere she couldn't follow. The outline of the cottage was sharper now, boards nailed over grimy windows, old flyers shredded and scattered around the mailbox. Rowan paused, squinting. Is it locked? It's ours, so no one's supposed to lock it, she muttered, half-empty pep in her tone. Let's see. She jimmied the back door. The wood groaned apart after one sharp nudge. Inside, it smelled like old grease and rust. The kitchen, cold and echoing, had a single steel cabinet flushed into the wall by the stove. Rowan darted to the dining room. Look, it's a real counter, like in a diner. She couldn't see the floor for dust, but padded forward. Then her toe hit something hard, her mother's old silver locket half buried in grime. Hook number 1, why was it here when the jewelry box had been lost 3 months ago? She knelt, scooping the locket, cold metal familiar, against her palm, her mother's initials scratched shallow on the back. She pocketed it, heart jittering. A wind rattled the loose roof tin, and in her head the mocking voices replayed, "Better off with a shed." She squared her shoulders. "We'll make it work," she said without conviction. The first hook had lodged. Now she needed to know how deep it went. She moved through the dark, narrow kitchen, flashlight beam quivering against splintered cabinet doors. Rowan, still humming quietly, trailed close. "Why's it smell weird here?" he whispered. "Old oil, probably, or maybe the ghosts you mentioned," she played along. But as she pressed palms against the cabinets, she felt an odd give in the wall behind the largest one. The steel-sided monster rusted to brown. A memory struck. Visiting her mother as a girl, she'd watched her pull something from behind the stove, mouth pinched with purpose. She pressed harder. The cabinet shifted, slow and reluctant, before swinging outward on a hidden hinge. Oblivion yawned, a shadowed corridor, steps vanishing below ground. "Mama," Rowan edged closer, "is that safe?" She hesitated. "Only one way to know, stay behind me." They stepped in together, Rowan's fingers laced tight with hers. Cold air slid up the steps, metallic and old. At the bottom, the beam-lit rows of shelves against damp brick. Crates, a battered safe, and an old dresser loomed in the gloom. She wrenched open the nearest crate. Inside, bundles of bills, Browning and spidery, with 1937 stamped in faint ink on several. Her throat went dry. Fine dust floated like ghosts in the beam. "Mama," Rowan said, voice wobbling, "that's a lot of money." Her mind reeled. Who had put it here, and why had none of her family known? But she knew abruptly that they had. "We need to check everything," she breathed, fear slowly morphing to resolve. They swept the corridor, a pace neither quick nor hesitant, shoes crunching on stray pebbles. Along the left wall, old jars with disintegrating paper labels whispered back to another era. Sugar, ration 1943, lard 1962. Each artifact layered time atop dread. Rowan pulled open a splintered drawer in the corner. A child's brooch, mother of pearl dulled by years, winked from within. Next to it, a yellowed envelope with "if found, read" in a hurried hand. She took it. The script was familiar, her mother's favorite pen. The ink faded. The note straightforward and raw. "I wish you found this years ago. You'll hear plenty about what's yours and what is. Trust the old safe and don't trust Linda. My biggest mistake was ever letting her borrow the key." She slumped to the stone floor, the paper shaking in her grasp. Rowan, wide-eyed, patted her elbow. "It's okay, Mama," he offered, trying to brave it. She stood again, bolstered by his presence, pressing fingers into each groove and seam of the little dresser. The bottom drawer stuck, then clicked, a hidden cavity. Inside, layers of crisp, tightly banded $100 bills, pristine as if shipped yesterday but stamped throughout the decades. 1930s, 1960s, even new ones from years she remembered, birthdays missed and holidays alone. Nestled beneath, a clutch of government bonds from the 1960s, interest compounded, amounting, she guessed, to the kind of sum her family would kill for. She exhaled a shudder, realizing two truths at once. Her mother had hidden this, and someone else had desperately tried to keep her from finding it. A cold trickle of certainty landed on her heart. If Linda and George had the will changed, what had they taken for themselves? She needed outside help, and fast. The wind outside intensified, snaking under the eaves, rattling glass. She tucked every scrap of evidence into her duffel, heart pounding. "Rowan, get your jacket, we're going into town." While they scrambled for the exit, she heard the echo of her mother's advice. Trust the old safe, don't trust Linda. Out in the rain-pitted road, headlights cut through darkness. They drove toward a battered office at the edge of town. The phone chimed, a message from Linda. "Hope you're not poking where you don't belong. Would hate for Rowan to get sick from all that mold." She ground her teeth, rage blanketing her fear. The lawyer's office was worn at the edges. Files fanned across the front desk with the slow surrender of someone used to losing. An old acrylic sign read James Kessler, Probate and Real Estate. Mr. Kessler, round-faced, gray, gave a quick double-take at her appearance. "Evening, you Hawkins' youngest." She nodded. "Yes, sir, I need help, urgently." He peered over his readers. "Whatever it is, best be quick. Got someone waiting for me at the Legion. You've only got 3 weeks before the court closes off anything new. Statute of limitations on estate fraud is ticking." She passed him the envelope and bonds. He raised an eyebrow, whistling low. "Ma'am, do you realize what you're holding?" Rowan hurried to sit, sneakers swinging from the chair. "Can we go soon, Mama?" She hushed him. "This is important, hun." Kessler lined up the $100 bills. "Never seen depression bills in this shape. Far as I can tell, this is north of 3 million. These," he lifted the government bonds, "careful, Reverend, are worth at least 12 times that, maybe more." Her stomach lurched. Rowan froze, mouth forming a perfect O. "You think my aunt and uncle knew?" she asked, voice tight. Kessler sniffed. "No telling, but I saw the will. They were mighty eager to get their hands on Main Street business, not this dump. Makes you wonder why." She leaned in, desperate. "I need to prove forgery. Connections to Linda, bank account numbers, fake signatures." Kessler clicked his tongue. "You want it public. There's a local reporter who's been digging into fraud for months. Might ruffle feathers, but truth works better in daylight." She met Rowan's gaze. "We have to try. If you want to beat them, you need noise, something they can't hide from." He jotted down a number. "Talk to Melanie at the Chronicle. She owes me, but act quick. Statute runs out in 21 days. After that, nothing anyone can do, you understand?" She nodded, sweat lining her palms. The phone buzzed. Second message, this time from George. "Heard you were snooping. Step lightly." Kessler pressed her shoulder. "Don't let them scare you." She walked out, Rowan clasping her hand, the weight of secrets heavy, but the timer had started. Back at the restaurant, she padded across sagging floorboards toward the kitchen. The air prickled. Someone had been inside, the muddy tracks unmistakable. Rowan darted behind her, clutching the old locket. Voices outside spun up, Linda's sharp accusation, George's clipped retort. They burst through the door. "Looking for something, honey?" Linda's voice needled. "You're awful quick to claim what isn't yours." Rowan shrank behind her. She steadied herself. "You don't get to scare us out," she replied, keeping calm. "You had the will changed. You tried to steal everything." George stepped forward, jaw grinding. "Careful what you say in front of your boy. We're family." "Family doesn't threaten children," she fired back. "I know about the fake signatures. James saw them, and now so will the paper." Linda moved closer, voice low. "What's your plan? Embarrass all of us. You couldn't run a lemonade stand, let alone a business." "I think the world might be interested in how you use the restaurant to drain the bank account," she countered. "And the police might too." A thick silence pressed in. Rowan, shaking, clung tighter. But then George's phone buzzed. He strode outside, voice angry on the wind. "I'm not scared," Rowan whispered. "You shouldn't be either, Mama." She forced a smile. "Not anymore." The next morning, she met Melanie, the Tips reporter, at the coffee shop. Over watery coffee and jittery glances, she pushed forward the envelope, the bonds, the rest. Melanie's eyes widened. "You could bring the county to its knees with this." "I just want what's fair," she said, voice thin. Melanie squinted, already scribbling. "And you're ready to stand up in front of everyone? Could be ugly." She nodded, Rowan's small hand stoic in hers. "Let them come. I'm tired of hiding." Together they mapped out a plan, 1 week for documentation, 1 for interviews, 1 to get to print. As she left, Melanie whispered, "Make copies, hide a set somewhere else. Don't trust anyone." A week later, the Chronicle's front page blazed. Long-lost funds, local family fraud, and a hidden hoard. How a diner's basement exposed the truth. Her mother's careful script flashed in digital blue for the county to see. The piece went viral. People whispered at the grocery store, gawking at Linda as she walked past. The bank froze George's accounts, Clients called, frantic, canceling contracts. Even the local news anchor showed up at the crumbling diner, camera crew in tow. Lights flashed against the turquoise siding, revealing scars old and new. Now, as the deadline loomed, Linda and George stormed into the diner's dining room, police in the parking lot, reporters everywhere. In her hand, the brittle envelope waited for its moment. She waited, Rowan by her side, fear warred with a streak of satisfaction. At last, the consequences would crash down. She set the stage by placing the document in plain sight. "You're lying, you knew all along." Her voice shot across the hum of cameras and the click of pens. Linda, trembling, tried to play composed. "I didn't know a thing, you're grasping at ghosts." She flipped open the ledger, showing Linda's name stamped on the transfer sheets from decades ago. "Then, why did your name show up on the bank transfer sheet? Explain that." George's bluster wilted. "We did what was best for the family, put that down." "No, you took what you wanted because it was easy, not anymore." Across the diners, people leaned in. "You're making a scene. Think about your son," Linda hissed, eyes flitting to Rowan. She held her ground, head high. "Everyone here has a right to know. This wasn't yours to take." It echoed in the tight space, the truth finally slipping free. The lights in the diner hummed, cameras rolling. Kin and strangers alike watched, waiting. "Let's see you talk your way out now," she whispered, not flinching. "I want a lawyer," George barked, desperate. "No more questions." A detective stepped forward, voice clear. "We've seen the files, you'll both come with us." Linda gaped, the pretense gone. In the doorway, Melanie scribbled furiously, catching every word. Her voice, so often diminished, carried as she said, "Rowan deserves to know his family didn't just walk away. No more lies." The sheriff nodded, turning to Linda. "Ma'am, you're under investigation for fraud, asset concealment, and forgery. You won't be going home tonight." Gasps and whispers swept the diners. Linda's mask crumpled, George stared at the floor. At last, the silence broke. A neighbor stepped forward. "You did right, sometimes secrets gotta see daylight." The weight she'd carried for years slipped away, just a little. In the weeks that followed, the legal machinery ground on. Melanie's reporting spread beyond town, media inquiries, depositions, and a tidal wave of shame for Linda and George. Reputation lost, clients vanished, former friends shunned them in aisles and pews. The bank transferred the estate officially, ground recovered with every signed form. The bonds, now valued at $12 million, were hers to use, Rowan S2. She set to work cleaning up the battered restaurant and the attached cottage, hauling out moldy carpet and layers of failure. With a small team and the town's curiosity, they laid down new flooring, painted over the turquoise, righted what they could of the battered sign. Her mother's notebook, now protected in a lockbox, hung behind the new register. She opened the doors for tour. History buffs came for the cash hoard story, travelers for a hot plate, and families fleeing flood and loss for the cheap rent in the cozy rooms above. Rowan, older and stronger, worked the counter, jokes sharper than ever. People who'd once pitied her now shook her hand, proud. The crumbling restaurant at the end of the highway was no longer a punchline but a cornerstone. A reminder that injustice left to rot in the shadows could be dragged up, made to serve hope instead of shame. People in town learned not to underestimate the woman who refused to be erased, even when all she had left was $42.16. She remembered the night her mother's words echoed in her ear, "Don't trust Linda," and the feeling of locket metal pressed warm against her skin. Every day she unlocked those same doors, letting in a little more light. It's strange what the world calls worthless and what time reveals to be irreplaceable. When power hides in plain sight and is used for good, the real transformation starts from loss, not from anything you can hold. So when you spot a boarded-up place that seems forgotten, maybe you'll think twice. Somewhere beneath the dust and loss, there just might be a miracle waiting if someone's brave enough to reach for it. The autumn mornings sharpened as the leaves burned from yellow to crimson, and each day she arrived early to flick on the lights of the newly christened Hawk's Nest Diner. The condensation on the windows vanished beneath Rowan's impish doodles, dinosaurs, superheroes, sometimes a lumpy rendition of their locket. Most of the town's suspicion and snickers had morphed to curiosity, then to tentative pride, and at last to the simple flow of regular customers. But there were still questions, wounds that didn't heal with a coat of paint or even a court victory. The first few weeks after the arrests, she would find herself clutching the locket, staring through drizzle into the empty parking lot, waiting for the universe to drop the next shoe. She found none, only the aching piece of closure and the small, stubborn steps of moving beyond it. One Tuesday after the early lunch rush, Melanie came by with a notepad, camera slung loose around her neck. Rowan served her a mug of burned coffee, his new signature, always on the house for troublemakers. The reporter's eyes lingered on the framed clipping above the register. "You know," Melanie began with a rueful grin, "haven't had this much fuss in the county since the mayor fell out the duck blind in '9. I only wish it all felt real some mornings," she confessed, polishing the counter's edge. "Didn't think I'd survive the week, let alone all this." Melanie pulled a folder from her bag, sliding it across. "Settlements approved. Their lawyers folded fast. The judge pretty much called your aunt and George the Bonnie and Clyde of probate fraud." She breathed out, shoulders finally dropping. "So it's over. No more hearings, no more calls from men in cheap suits." Melanie nodded. "Officially, you're the sole legitimate inheritor, that's their phrase. You get everything your mother intended. Money's yours, Rowan's college fund, hell, you can put gold leaf in the pancakes if you want." Rowan grinned. "Gold pancakes would be weird, though." She ruffled his wild hair. "Think we'll stick to chocolate chips." Melanie sipped her coffee, grimaced. "You thought about what you'll do with the rest? I've had 2 banks and a real estate developer ask if you're selling." She shook her head, startled by the certainty in herself. "I'm not going anywhere. This is where Mom started. It needs to matter, not just for us. Folks around here need something that wasn't stolen for once." Melanie watched her for a while, then closed her notepad. "You know, not everyone here wanted to see you win." She nodded, not unkind. "Doesn't matter now." Melanie grinned. "And that's how you know you're right for it." That night she shut down alone, standing under the humming neon lamp of the sign. The parking lot was empty but for a single rusted truck, headlights slanted low. She tensed, old habits, until the driver's door swung open and a familiar figure emerged, Mrs. Wilkins, her mother's best friend from the old days. "Marlene always said you'd be the one to fix what we broke," Wilkins called, voice tremulous with unshed tears. She swallowed hard, letting the door swing open behind her, stepping into the yellow light and brisk autumn dark. Did she really think that? Mrs. Wilkins nodded. "She told me if anybody could untie the knots Linda and George twisted, it'd be you. My girl's got a lion in her heart," is what she'd say. She laughed, a lump in her throat. "Feel more like a stray cat most days." "Lion, cat, either way, you didn't run." Wilkins' hand covered hers, brown, knuckled, strong. "Your mama would be proud, and there's more. Thought you should have this." From her tote, Wilkins produced a faded photograph. It showed her mother, 20 years younger, standing atop the diner's counter. A baby her, she realized, balanced on Marlene's hip, both squinting at the flash. On the back, scrawled in rushed script, "For the days you can't remember, never let them say it wasn't yours." She traced the ink with a trembling thumb. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." Wilkins left her at the doorway, the photograph pressed against her heart. She stood alone in the drift of porch light as leaves swept about her ankles. Weeks cycled into months. Days shortened, but hope loosened the town's shoulders. Each new morning brought people, shuttered men who'd lost jobs in the mine collapse, mothers scraping by, travelers who read about the scandal and wanted to snag a slice of history with their eggs. She welcomed them all. Sometimes Rowan would dash through the lunch crowd, filching an extra muffin for Mrs. Tinsley down the street, or offer steaming soup to the couple crammed on the stoop with nothing but a suitcase between them. One snowy morning, Melanie arrived with a letter. "From Boston," she announced, some Ivy League lawyer by the look. She opened it with hesitant hands. Inside, embossed on heavy stock, sat a request from an archival historian, a traveling exhibit on lost American fortunes, and would she consider lending her mother's notebook and a selection of the original bills. Her hands shook as she read, offer of payment, all costs covered, her and Rowan flown east for the gala opening. Rowan, sprawled on the battered booth seat, peered at the letter upside down. We going to be famous. She laughed, the warmest sound she'd made in months. Doesn't much matter if we are, but I guess we'll find out. Can I see a real T-Rex skeleton? He asked, eyes twinkling. If I can see a real ocean, she bargained. It was a small promise, but it carried the singing uplift of possibility. She called Melanie back that evening. Tell them yes, but they only get the notebook if it comes home again. You're really going? Melanie asked after a pause. Only for a week, the diner's not going anywhere. Want me to keep an eye on George and Linda's old friends? Melanie's tone was lighter now, almost teasing. She hesitated. I think their game's over, but if there's trouble, you'll know before I do. That winter, she and Rowan boarded a rumbling regional flight, her battered duffels packed with clothes and the careful package of their family's relics. Her mother's locket tucked in her shirt, the worn notebook wrapped safe in a scarf, 3 bills pressed flat in a folder. As the plane climbed above the blue haze of West Virginia light, Rowan's small fingers gripped her palm in wonder. Do you miss her? He asked after takeoff, his own locket-clad chest rising and falling. The ache shuddered, then steadied. Every day, but I think she's proud. Rowan's breath fogged the plastic window. I hope we see the ocean. We will, and when we come back, you'll help me with the next project. He perked up, hopeful, like a treehouse. Like a reading room for anybody who wants to learn. Your grandmother always said the diner should be more than food. His eyes shone. She'd like that. At the conference, among polished floors and the diamonded clink of glass, they displayed Marlene's notebook, her photograph, and 1 stack of bills, roots of extraordinary stories. Historians, journalists, strangers huddled around the glass case, eager for the tale. Still, to her relief, nobody asked more than she was willing to tell. She let the truth stretch its legs unembellished and watched as people's faces flickered from disbelief to awe, sometimes to the silence of recognition. Every family has a secret, only some are illuminated. Back home, returning to the valley's muted sunlight, she found new bills tucked beneath the front door, donations from locals who wanted to help fix the fence, restock the pantry, sponsor someone's kid. Pride softened her voice as she thanked each giver. The work was endless: plumbing that coughed, stoves that hiccuped, a roof still patched with hope and tar, but it was theirs and it was enough. One evening, as frost rimmed the windows, Rowan came in from the stoop clutching a crumpled envelope, no address, only to the owner scrawled on the front. Inside, a note, forgive if you can, no words excuse what we did. It was signed with a tremulous Linda, the ink nearly washed away. Rowan handed her the letter with furrowed brows. What will you do? She looked at her son, at the murky blue of his eyes, too old for his years yet stubbornly innocent. She pondered the dozens of nights she'd spent stewing over a distant cousin's malice, the hurt of being dismissed by people who should have protected her. And she thought about the long road she'd taken, the forgiveness she'd so rarely found offered to her. I think we let her be, she said finally, voice gentle but firm. She has to live with what she's done. We have to live with what we've built. That answer seemed enough for Rowan, who pocketed the aged envelope and dashed off to set spoons for a neighbor soon to arrive. And so the days flowed on. The silver bell above the door rang for new customers and old friends alike. The locket's chain grew warmer on her collarbone, no longer a relic of something hidden but now a symbol in plain sight. Kids from the school bus would jostle in, eager for stories about the basement gold. Sometimes she'd spin them a yarn, other times she simply let them see the safe, empty now, scrubbed clean. Years later, those stories blurred into a larger tapestry. The diner joined parades, hosted weddings, gave away leftover pies at Thanksgiving. Rowan took over the counter in due time, his cowlick still defiant, his wit undiminished. And on quiet afternoons, when all the plates were cleared and only the echo of footsteps wandered through the dining room, she'd sit with the notebook and trace her mother's looping notes, letting gratitude swell and grief subside. In those rare silences, she found the gift her mother left. Not only money, not only a home, but a sense that history could be carried forward as something generous. One late spring evening, as fireflies tangled in the dusk and the soft clatter of the kitchen faded, Rowan joined her at the porch steps. "Do you think people will remember all this?" he asked, voice dreamy with the possibilities of youth. She squeezed his hand. "Maybe not every detail, but they'll know we didn't give up, even when it would have been easier." Rowan smiled wide, honest. "Then I'm glad we stayed." She looked out across the glowing sign, over the quiet, mended roof and the street that no longer felt like exile. "So am I," she murmured, heart loud with hope. "So am I." And in that moment, as the evening stilled around them, the past found its place in the light, finally giving way to a future they could claim for good. Rowan leaned his head on her shoulder, quiet for a long spell. A breeze rattled budding branches above them. Down the street, porch lights blinked on, one by one, and the hush of contentment settled. From inside the diner, the tuneless clink of dishes being stacked drifted out, Sam, the new hire, whistling while she locked up. "Do you miss the city sometimes?" Rowan asked softly, looking out toward the hills. "Or Grandma?" She let the question sink in. "I miss Grandma every day, but she's a part of this place now, us too," she smiled into the gathering dark. "The city, I think I'd miss what we have here more." He grinned, nudging her. "Good, because I applied to paint a new mural on the side wall for art class. It's supposed to tell our story." She laughed, surprised and proud. "Our story?" Rowan nodded, earnest. "You and Grandma and me and even the ghosts, everybody who helped, even Melanie wants to help with the sketches." She turned, ruffling his hair. "Then I guess we owe her brunch for the rest of the year." He feigned outrage. "Only if you make those chocolate chip pancakes." "Deal," her heart lifted, lighter and lighter with every word. A pair of headlights trailed down the lane, Mrs. Wilkins coming for her evening tea. Inside, Sam waved from the window, already warming the kettle. Rowan scrambled to his feet, grabbing the photo of Marlene he'd left on the stoop. "I'll meet you inside, Mama." His footsteps faded, quick and happy. She lingered, savoring the scent of dew and lilac, the glow of hard-earned peace. No more secrets buried in dust. No more running, just roots running strong beneath the diner, winding through her and Rowan, a foundation her mother could be proud of. Rising, she touched the locket gently and made her way toward the door, ready for whatever came next. In the soft wash of lamplight, laughter unspooled and the simple, honest work of belonging began again.